As a pastor, I carry a great responsibility for the care of words. Not only at the hospital, where I minister as a hospital chaplain, and where I train aspiring pastors for their work of pastoral care, but also in the local churches. I care for the words of the church. At the hospital, I care for the souls of suffering people. It's very important work, as you can imagine. And often my success for caring for the souls of people depends on my success in using words. Words. The care of words and the care of souls are inseparable. In the church, I care for the vocabulary of the church. As every preacher must, pay attention to the vocabulary of the church and how it is used, how is it employed. Oh, this work of caring for the vocabulary of the church is very important because we have a crisis of words in our culture today. And so to come to a church where words are respected and honored and given attention and given weight and given power, this is totally contra-cultural to what we experience out there. This task, this assignment I have of caring for the vocabulary of the church takes me on some unusual assignments. Some unusual assignments. For instance, I have the delightful experience of serving in the retirement services for certain words, for your words that we don't use anymore, you know. We retire words. For instance, I was over in Conroe not long ago when they retired the word tolerable. It was a nice service over there. There were about 30 elderly people there picketing outside the church. They didn't want us to retire that word. They insisted that the word tolerable was still a good one to use, but Conroe retired the word tolerable. Hope you don't mind. Hope that didn't upset you. I'm going to Galveston at the end of this month for the retirement of the word played out. Played out. All right. You know, played out. You go down the highway and you turn off the highway and you go down to the end of the gravel road and you find out that the road, there you know. Now, sometimes this work of caring for words is exciting work. It's inspiring. I've been called in almost as a deputy to help retrieve words that have been stolen. Can you imagine that? There's a church in Pasadena. I won't call its name, but it's in Pasadena, you know. Someone burglarized the church. They got in there, a thief got in there, broke into the room where the church keeps its vocabulary and took one of the finest, oldest biblical words. The church was very upset about it, bothered by it. They got in there and stole that word. The word was charismatic. Well, the word was found later, Pastor. The word was found later. I didn't find it. It was found out on the street, being used by everyone from politicians to advertisers, you know. Oh, he'll get elected because he's charismatic. Well, we found that word. And we took it back to the church, and we put it in the vault. And the minister says he never uses it, but he knows where it is if he needs to drag it out. I've been to court to testify on behalf of words. Sometimes one of the church's words is falsely accused. The word charity. Charity was up on charges in the Superior Court of Harris County, Texas, not long ago. It was charged for loitering, vagrancy. Some people said, and I don't know if it's true or not, some people said that Charity had been hanging out around downtown somewhere, passing out smelly used clothes, giving away food that fat people didn't want. They accused Charity of fixing broken toys and handing them out to the children in the street and at the schools. So I was called in to testify about this word charity. I did the best I could. I told the judge and the jury all I knew about that word charity. Charity has an excellent family history. The mother is Latin, curitas. The father is from the Greek, charis. I told them that the word is sometimes translated grace, sometimes translated gratitude, sometimes it's translated gift, charity. It's a beautiful word. I don't know what they'll do with charity in Harris County. Remains to be seen. Sometimes I go into churches and help them pronounce words. Now, I don't mean simple little old words like hypotenuse or viviparous or ovoviviparous. I mean really tough words that some churches hardly ever say and don't know how to pronounce. Words like Jesus, Holy Spirit, love. Old churches talk a lot, you know. Our modern churches, they say, oh, we got a good minister, highly educated, we got a nice building, we got good air conditioning, it's in a good location, but they don't know how to say certain words in church, like God. Sometimes I help out that way. I'm not very popular when I do. It seems appropriate then that when the pastor invited me to preach this morning that I pondered on what word or words I should bring and share with you today. Annie participated in the pondering, as she often does. She helped me get ready this morning, shirt ironed, tie, don't need one, she said. Shoes, those are okay, she said. She asked, are you ready to go? When we got around this morning, are you ready to go? Do you have everything you need? And she opened up my Bible and she looked inside and she said to me, is that all you're taking? These are the conversations now that go on in a preacher's house. Is that all you're taking? I said, yeah, I believe that's it. I think that's enough. And she said, but there's only one word in there. You usually take more words than that. There's plenty of room in the car for more words. If you want to stuff some in the trunk, you can take some more words. I said, no, I think I'll just take one word. And I'm sorry, kind of embarrassed to say that I only brought one word with me this morning. One little old word, 5 letters in the English. And so I thought as I came to preach to you this morning about what word to bring and whether or not you'd really be interested in it, so I brought it with me this morning. It's only one word, 5 letters in the English. I ran it by the pastor before we got here, and he said he thought that would be okay, but upon arrival, I'm kind of just one word, 5 letters in the English. It's the word place. Not space, place. Space, space is another word altogether. Space is the word you use when 2 people have a place, but the place is too close together. I need my space. Get out of my space. Space means distance, alienation, separation. I don't mean space this morning. And I don't mean turf. Turf. Hear that a lot now, especially in offices, businesses. It denotes competition, turf. I don't know why that minister keeps coming back here to the church to do the weddings and the funerals, because doesn't he know now this is my turf? Turf is when a lot of people are claiming the same place. I don't like that word turf. It has a high fence around it, electrically charged. No trespassing signs on that word turf, and a Doberman pinscher on the other side of the fence snarling at you. Turf. I mean the simple little word place. It's easy to pronounce, isn't it? Shall we all pronounce it? Thank you. Sometimes it's an ugly word. In our culture, I've heard it used as an ugly word. A woman's place. I'll let you finish that. Well, I don't mind if they move into the neighborhood as long as they stay in their ugly word sometimes. But usually in my hearing, it's a beautiful word. Why don't you come over to Pastor George's place for supper? Yeah. Beautiful word. There's always a place. There's always a place at the table for you. There's no place like, I have a warm place in my heart for you. And Jesus said, I go to prepare for you. Psalm 90. Lord, you have been our dwelling in all generations. But whether it's an ugly word or a beautiful word, it's a very important word when it comes to the Bible. I thought of it today, preparing to come over here and be with you. I thought of that word in many contexts. I recalled Dr. King's great speech at that Grand Washington event so many years ago, that I Have a Dream speech. He talked about our rightful place. Little old word, big word. It's a word that helps us understand so much of human feeling and activity and sentiment and behavior. Breathes there a man with soul so dead, who never to himself has said, this is my land, my native land, whose heart as air within him burned. As home his footsteps he did turn, from wandering on a foreign land to say, this is my place. Place. What happens when you show up at church and the doors are locked and you can't get into the place? You get on the phone, don't you? What's wrong here? Something's amiss. I can't. And the father and the daughter said, as she prepared to go home to Boston, the daughter said to the mom, now, Mom, get your things together. You're going home with us. And Mom said, no, I don't. And the daughter said, now, Mom, Dad died last week, and there's nothing holding you here. And we've all moved away, Mom, and I don't want you staying here by yourself. And Mom says, I'm not by myself. No, Mom, I don't want to hear another word about it. We'll arrange for the furniture and the piano to come later, but you're coming with us. No, I don't think so. I'm going to stay here. I got my church and my friends, and I have my memories, and this is my. And the children all ran through this new little house. A house with a bath and 5 rooms built by volunteers. Habitat for Humanity, a 5-room house. And the woman and those 3 little girls stood there in the foyer of that house, her eyes brimming with tears. And the children running up and down the hall and in and out of the rooms and back and forth and pulling at her skirt. Mama, Mama, is this our? Mama, is this our? Look at their eyes. Look into their eye. I'm talking about the word place. Can you still pronounce it the way you could 10 minutes ago? I hunted a lot when I was a boy. Central Illinois, Western Illinois near St. Louis. I hunted a lot. Grandma Smith had a farm. Many winter afternoons, I could be found chasing the same rabbit through the bushes on Grandma's farm. He was not scared. One afternoon, I chased the rabbit across the road and noticed a parked car at the entrance to the field. And I watched as 2 older adults got out of their station wagon, opened the back of the station wagon, and removed 2 aluminum folding chairs. They set up the chairs there on the edge of the field, and they sat down in them and held each other's hand there by the edge of a field. Well, I forgot the rabbit, and my curiosity took over, and I went up to them, and I said to them, "Hey, are you out here hunting?" They said, No, we're not hunting. And so I said, "Well, what are you doing out here? Midwinter time on the edge of a field, what do you do?" And the man spoke up. He said, "I'm a Methodist minister. And for the past 25 years, we've lived in a parsonage. And I'm going to retire in 2 years. And we bought an acre of land here at the edge of this field. And in a few months, we're going to have our own place." Now I'm talking place. You have to have that word to understand the Bible. From Genesis, when Adam and Eve had offended the Almighty, what did the Almighty say to them? You'll have to leave this place. To Cain, after he killed his brother, which is a frightening, frightening story. If you've not read that story lately, I've been doing some study in that story, Pastor George. That is a dark, dark story. When Cain, after he killed his brother Abel, God gave Cain the worst punishment you could imagine. He said to Cain, "You are never going to have a place in your life." No place can you imagine. That way is one way to understand the history of Israel. That intense little slip of land there on the Mediterranean coast, they want to call it their place, and they're fighting over their place to have a place for themselves. That word is essential for understanding the story of Abraham and Sarah, our foreparents in the journey of faith. Abraham and Sarah, pilgrims they were across Palestine from the north near Lebanon to the south near the border with Egypt. Pilgrims and sojourners. The Bible describes Abraham and Sarah, pilgrims and sojourners. Oh, we make a lot out of being heirs of Abraham and Sarah. It wasn't glamorous to be Abraham and Sarah. They were not toting picnic baskets along the Mediterranean coast, okay? Every night Sarah would ask Abraham, "Abraham, is this the place? I'm so tired of paper plates and styrofoam cups, and I'd like to get out my good china and set up the table and put the crystal out, and I'd like for us to settle down a little." He'd say to her, No, Sarah, This is not our place. We'll be moving on tomorrow. Every night. Abraham, is this? No. Eventually she died. You know the story. Eventually she died. And he had no to bury her. No place to bury your wife. So he bought a little cave. And he put her body there. And then he moved on. Can you imagine? Not long thereafter, he quit looking for a place. Because one night in Abraham's life, he said to God, filled up to here with exasperation, God, is this the place? And God replied, Abraham, you know better than that. I am the place. O Lord, you have been our dwelling place in all generations. God is the place. Everyone longs to move toward, into, and arrive at the place that is God. I preach about the place because we are pilgrims moving toward the place that is God. It's my job to announce that to people, that you are going somewhere and make God your destination. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes unto the Father but by me. To move toward God and to find your life's place in God, with God, whatever preposition you want to use, in, with, beside, before, after. But my ministry is not just to preach about the place. My ministry is to offer a place. This church's ministry on this road is to offer people a place. You know what it means to be lost, don't you? To be lost means I don't have a place. And here God has set us down on this place to offer people a place. What's the mission of this church? I hope it includes the notion of offering a people a safe place, a secure place, a place where loneliness is vanquished. Because I'll tell you, the world is dying from loneliness. That's what these chairs are for, Pastor George. These chairs lined up like this. This is Christian furniture. Okay? We sit together when we go to the place called church. What's it like to go to church? People say, well, the first thing it's like is we sit together. Do you know how radical that is in our world today? These chairs are marvelous symbols of what the church is to be about. And this table, right here, this table, every time we approach the table, a voice comes through. There was always a place for you at this table. I know some of you don't believe that. Okay, I want you to rethink that. If you're kind of stuck there about who has a place at this table, I hope you will consider the notion that this is Christ's table and he never turned anyone away from his table. The table and the chairs. Now, I confess to you this morning, it's easier to speak of a place than it is to offer a place. That's where the rub is, isn't it? It's easier to speak of a place than to offer a place. Do we really offer a place? Is that really part of our mission that we have agreed about as a church? Is that we will be a safe place for anyone and everyone. Do you ever wish you were a better Christian? Boy, I do. I don't wish I was a better student or a better teacher or a better singer or a better husband. Sometimes I just wish I was a better Christian. I met a Christian once. The man had been an agricultural missionary in north central China. He tried to teach the Chinese people how to raise their own food. And when the communists took over, this has been decades ago now, when the communists took over, he was put under house arrest. And after some years, he was released and permitted to come home to America. His mission board sent him a ticket to make it home. And he made his way from China to India. And from there, he was to take passage to the United States. But while he was in port in India, waiting for his ship to bring him home, he learned that there was a boatload of Jews stuck in India. You know, back then, just after the Second World War, there was a time when no country would take boatloads of Jews. And they just wandered the world looking for ports where they could camp. They had no, and they wandered the land and the sea. And they had arrived there in India at this particular port, and they pulled that ship in, and the Jews were allowed to disembark and find temporary places out in the fields, in barns and sheds and pastures, all around the countryside. And this man, this missionary, his name was Oswald Coulter. He heard about the plight of these Jews, and he went out to them. And it was Christmas time. And he went out to the barn where many of them were holed up. And he hollered up into the loft, "Hey, Merry Christmas." They said, "We're Jewish." He said, "I know, but it's Christmas. What do you want for Christmas?" They said, "We're Jewish." I know, but it's Christmas. What would you like for Christmas?" So finally, to get rid of him, they said, "We would like some German pastries." Now imagine, German pastries in India for a boatload of Jews. He went out and scoured the city. And he found a bakery. And he cashed in his ticket to America and bought a basket of pastries and took them out into the field and found the barn. And he spread those pastries before the Jews, and they fared sumptuously. Well, I heard Oswald Coulter tell that story in front of an audience of straight-laced, proper Christian seminarians, okay? And in that, okay, you know where this is going, huh? In that audience, a young man stood up and said, "Brother Coulter, why did you trade in your boat ticket for pastries for a boatload of Jews? They don't even believe in Jesus." And he said, "Oh, I know, but I do."